You'll notice that the very big theme that happens within the legal construct that's out there that everybody's going to walk into at one point or another is the question, who are you? Now, it's interesting that truth is unquestionable. And in fact, there's a Latin maxim, I believe, I hope I'm accurate on it, and you can correct me by email if you find something not in the Latin maxims. But I think my recollection would say that one of the Latin maxims is plain truths need not be proven. So your God-given name is truth, and therefore it needs not be proven. The world of legal fiction, where we start dealing with the nickname, the evil name, the agnomen, cognomen, false names, pseudonames that are out there to identify someone in the legal construct of fiction, those names need proof. And that's why everything is about proof. So court is about proof. And that's why everything has to be proven in there, because everybody's operating on average inside there, taking on the responsibility of a legal title they're consenting to. So in the construct, it's not your given name that's really being transferred to the state, but in essence, when you speak it, you're showing your willingness to take on the debt of another or take on the responsibility as a surety for the legal surname that is induced by the state for use by license. But you're in essence being, in theory, assigned the opportunity to take on something for granted and take on that responsibility. So they're assigning onto a willing consenting party that's hosting the responsibility for the name. It can't be pulled off without the given name. So you can't create a birth certificate without there being a given name that was placed in on the birth record by the parents. If the parents had known they weren't responsible to have to put that on there, because they're not, and we've already had videos dealing with the fact that there is no provision in the Canadian, at least on this side of the border, I'm sure it is in all other countries that are playing legal, that there is no provision in the legal system for an individual to transfer. Transfer means convey, or a lien, make it a debt, to transfer their given names to anyone, whether to a person, a corporation, or trust. In that context, they're talking about transferring what is truth from God, spiritual, into what is fiction, which belongs to the legal state. So therefore, everything that everybody's been doing is working contrary to what is the reality of what the responsibility is for anyone. Therefore, the people of God are going to be more enlightened on this, and they're going to see truth. And they're going to know they're not required to place or transfer or convey to anyone that's in legal responsibility, whether it's an officer of the law, a government official, a court judge. They're not responsible for that, even though it may appear that they're induced. But it's your responsibility to speak the truth. That's why some people are saying, Dan, why aren't you just laying it out on how to do that? Well, if you haven't got the message after 600 and plus videos, that means you haven't watched them thoroughly. Many people watch the videos and send me a completely opposite, contrary email, almost stating that I've governed them to go down a direction that I never stated. And that's why it's ears to hear and eyes to see. But when you're convoluted and immersed in false doctrine of Babylonian, pagan, heathen governments, you're never going to see this. You're never going to see the truth. And you're going to get mixed up playing, I'm going to be a moonlighter, I'm going to serve two masters. I'm going to try to serve God, and then I'm going to serve the legal state, and then I'm going to say, God, you've forsaken me. Really? Or have you forsaken God? So we really have to know, who are we? And of course, the who runs something that's questionable. Because it's questionable you have any proof of legal entitlement to a legal assigned surname that in reality you're forbidden, not only by God, but actually by the state, to use. You've taken it on by assumption, and therefore you've trespassed under consent, and therefore you bear the responsibility, whether you see it or not. And that's why civil, or this term civilian, means someone versed or educated, an expert in the civil law. That means you've taken on all the responsibility as many laws as they passed. What a burden to take on. And that's why Christ was warning about the lawyers, which are really acting symbolically as descendants of these Pharisees who had denied the Messiah from the time that God took his spirit away from the nation of Israel. These are evil people, and their descendants are still running the game. And they want you part of their system. And if they can deceive you into believing that the legal name, the legal surname is yours, which identifies you as a participant under suretyship in their world, they're going to use you all the way. If you don't realize you're being controlled by a spell, an evil spell, and that you're really under a spell, surprisingly, on these documents, these statement of birth records, isn't it interesting that the surname is on top, so you're under, with your given name, a spell. Even though the fact that the given name doesn't belong to the state, and you certainly could have had your parents, if they were in knowledge at the time, write in non-transferable, which means not conveyable, not alienable. Only if knowledge had been there, but due to lack of knowledge, my people will perish. So slowly, God's people, unfortunately, have been perishing in the world surrounding them that is run by the kingdoms of Satan and the synagogue of Satan, with deniers of the salvation of Christ, operating a debtor society, and therefore we're now in a chaos beyond a chaos. But God's people are not supposed to be involved in the chaos. I'll be dealing with a little bit of a touchy subject in the next video, and I hope I don't get hate mail after this.